Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, she got my name tattooed on her. How the heck do I break up with her? And the thing is, we've only been dating for 2 months. Our relationship has been like nothing I've ever experienced. It's adventurous, fun, and everything like that, but I started seeing red flags very quickly. She's crazy, like she's completely nuts, and I hate to break it off right before Valentine's Day, but we need to part ways. I asked her to meet with me with the intentions of breaking up with her. She said she had something to show me, but we were in public, so she showed me a picture of it instead, which ended up being a tattoo of my name on her with a handprint. I was thinking it was a joke, which actually made her mad. Anyways, it's real. All of my breakups with exclusive relationships have ended amicably. This would be the only one where I anticipate a huge reaction. Given these details, how would you suggest that I break up with her? Now is the time to break up, before Valentine's Day turns into an indictable offense. This is one of the only times I would recommend a breakup by text, then block her and move out of state. OP, I can block her, but I can't move out of state. Have a friend stay with you for a day or two for security reasons, not sad, depressed reasons. Also, install security cameras inside and out of your house. The ones inside need to be hidden. I'm a little scared for you, OP. As others have said, tell her over the phone, then plan to be out of town for 2 weeks. The #1 rule in tattoos is never ever get someone else's name tattooed on you. Just because she was foolish enough to put your name on her doesn't mean you have to stay with her for the rest of your life. That's her problem. Simply tell her you don't see this relationship going the distance and that you think it's best you go your separate ways. Move out of state? Have a friend stay with you for security? Is it just me or are these folks exaggerating? You've never dealt with a psycho ex, have you, Karen? Am I the jerk for moving out instead of sharing my living space, which is causing a problem for my mom and her boyfriend? My dad passed when I, female 16, was about 3 years old. We lived in a house that my grandparents own, and they agreed to let my mom and I live there rent-free. Over the years, whenever my mom dated, I tried to spend the nights she had guests over at my grandparents' house. When I was 10, my grandfather renovated the basement to make me my own kind of apartment. I have my own bathroom, kitchen, and living room to go with my bedroom. My mom met a guy last year and it got serious. He moved in with his 2 kids, which is fine by me. My mom deserves to be happy and have someone in her life. There are 3 bedrooms upstairs, so it's perfect. One for them and one for each of his kids. Everything was going according to plan until the kids asked where I was staying. I said I lived in the basement. They made a joke about me living in my mom's basement. I invited them down to play Mario Kart to be sociable and to show off, if I'm being completely honest. I have a couch my uncle gave me and my dad's old lazy boy in the living room. The recliner is only for me and all of my friends know that. The kids started complaining that it wasn't fair that I got all of this room to myself. One tried sitting in my chair even after I told her it was only for me. I settled that immediately. It's mine. After a few races where I demolished them, I said it was time for them to go back upstairs. They said no. I called my mom to come get them. Over the course of the next week, my mom started hinting that maybe my living room should be a common area. I said no. She started insisting. I said no. She has a key to my door. I never locked my door unless she had guests. I did start locking it when Dan and his kids moved in. I came home from school and found the kids in my living room. They had also gone into my room, and they were eating my snacks that I pay for myself. I yelled and told them to get out. I called for my mom to explain why they were there. She said that she decided it wasn't fair that I got almost a third of the house to myself and that my TV and gaming system should be shared. I said, forget that. She got really upset with me and said it was a done deal, so deal with it. My grandfather heard, and he and my uncles came and got me. All of the things that mattered to me, including my recliner. He told my mom that she needed to start paying rent if I wasn't going to be living there. I have a bedroom at my grandparents' house, but I miss my area. My mom is trying to get me to come back so that they can save money to get their own place. Yeah, right, I'm not that dumb. She said that I need to stop being a brat and behave like an adult. I said I was living like an adult until you let those kids into my area without permission. She tried to say she could do whatever she wanted in her house. Sometimes I think she forgets that it wasn't my dad's house and she didn't inherit it. I feel a little guilty about this because my mom is actually pretty cool, and I hate that this is causing a strain in her relationship. Am I the jerk? Edit. After talking to my grandparents, I have something to add. They were not happy about her moving her boyfriend and his kids in. They were going to allow it since I live there still. Them coming into my space and my mom saying I had to share it did not go over well with them. That's why they want to start charging her rent, especially after I moved out. Not the jerk. I'm glad you're standing firm because your mother has absolutely no right to your living area, your things, your snacks, etc. They were provided to you from your grandparents, not from her. Unfortunately, some people just can't be reasoned with, as you found out. You're probably going to find yourself going low contact when you're an adult, and that's okay. You can love her from a distance and not become the person who supplies the deficits in her life. She's an adult. She should pay her own way, not steal from her daughter. Am I the jerk for being suspicious of my girlfriend's friend after she tried to test me? I, 30 male, have been dating my girlfriend, Olivia, 23 female, for the last 1 year. We met at a coffee shop near my office, which I used to frequent to get my morning coffee, and she worked there as a barista. I asked her out and she said yes. Things have gone great so far, and I feel we are compatible in terms of what we like and want from a relationship. She has a group of 3 girlfriends that she's close with. These girls are always very welcoming to me, but they seem very immature compared to my friends. One of the girls is Harper, who's 23. Harper is awesome and we get along well since we like the same video games and music. Recently, Olivia and I were talking about taking our relationship to the next stage, and I asked her to move in with me. She spends 4 to 5 nights a week at my place anyways, so I just asked her to move in. For some reason, her parents are the most excited about this as she's finally moving out of their house. She also told her friends about the same. On Saturday, Olivia decided to stay back at her parents' house to pack some of her things. Harper messaged Olivia and me that she and her friends were downtown and if we wanted to hang out with her. Olivia was gone, but she told me it was okay if I wanted to go out for drinks with the girls. I had nothing to do, and hence I joined them. It was all 3 of her friends and me, and we went to a few bars. We lost the other 2 girls midway, and it was just Harper and I. I was constantly messaging Olivia about what was going on as I started to get uncomfortable with the situation. As it was getting late, I told Harper that I would get an Uber for her to drop her off at home. She told me that she wanted to go dancing. At this point, she was visibly drunk. I called an Uber for her anyway. As we were leaving the bar, Harper grabbed my t-shirt and tried to kiss me. I immediately pulled back and told her that this was making me uncomfortable and I would let it pass since she was drunk. She apologized to me. As we were waiting for Uber, she again started to get handsy and told me, "Let's go back to your place, and no one needs to know." I snapped at her at this point and I told her to please shut up until she got in the car. Finally, the Uber came and I got Harper to get in. She kept on apologizing to me and telling me, "Please don't tell Olivia." Finally, her Uber left and I tracked it on my phone to make sure she reached home. I asked Olivia to check with Harper's roommate if she got safely to her apartment. As I was walking home, I called Olivia and told her about what happened. Olivia was crying and I was genuinely upset at Harper's behavior. Olivia tried to call Harper at night, but her phone was going straight to voicemail. In the morning, Olivia came home and told me, "Hey, it's all good. It was just a test." I was angry at this point and asked Olivia to explain what was going on. So Harper messaged Olivia in the morning that Olivia was really lucky and that I passed the test. I asked Olivia if she was involved in this, and she did not know that Harper was going to test me. According to Harper, she wanted to make sure that I was not a cheater before Olivia moved in with me. Hence, she wanted to see if I accept her advances. I told Olivia that Harper is full of crap because she was drunk, and there's no way she was thinking straight. Moreover, when I snapped at her, she apologized and told me not to tell you anything. Harper's just trying to cover for her mistake and is giving a BS excuse. Olivia thinks I'm overreacting. According to her, Harper is her best friend and would never betray her. Although the test was stupid and Harper should apologize to me, she was just looking out for Olivia's best interests. Also, Olivia feels nothing happened, so I should not make a big deal out of it. I just feel Olivia is dumb and cannot see that her friend tried to get her boyfriend to cheat. I just feel she's too immature to understand Harper's true intentions, and it's bothering me. I told her to stay away from Harper if she wanted us to have a happy relationship. Am I the jerk to tell Olivia to not believe Harper's lies, or do you think Harper's story checks out and that I'm just overreacting? I've never heard of anyone hitting on their friend's boyfriend to test the relationship, and it seems like the most BS excuse. Olivia will not drop Harper no matter what. You will not be able to badmouth Harper ever without upsetting Olivia, and Olivia's going to believe Harper over you, which she's pretty much proven already. The number of red flags here is significant. Do not move this girl into your apartment. And Harper will be coming over to your apartment regularly, and she will hit on you again and again and again. Eventually, she'll get mad at her failure to steal you from Olivia, and she will tell Olivia a lie that you did, in fact, fail the test. Now be clear on this. Olivia will believe Harper, not you. You've already lost this battle. It's best to either end this relationship or keep it on the surface level. No moving in or getting married. Not the jerk. But sir, a measly 4 years ago, they were teenagers, albeit freshly minted adults. You can't expect them to have the level of maturity of the people in your age group. They still have plenty of life to experience. Unfortunately for you, you've already been there, done that, so it can make things awkward or difficult to navigate. Don't think that this is the only immature thing you'll have to deal with going forward. The fact that her friend plotted and tried to pull this on you and she doesn't see a problem with it, that's a major red flag. The reason your girlfriend and her friends seem immature is because of the huge age gap. You might not think 7 years is a lot, and it wouldn't be if your girlfriend was 37, but at your stages of life, it's huge. Not the jerk. Date a woman closer to your own age. She's too immature for a serious relationship. I wonder how many of Olivia's other boyfriends failed Harper's test in the past. She's probably hooked up with all of Olivia's past boyfriends except for you. Okay, you win. We will practice and play on the other field. Several years ago, I coached a kids' soccer team. It was a community recreation league with volunteer coaches with a focus on fun and equal playing time. There were 2 fields next to a school. The third field is a 2-minute walk away and hidden behind a thick stand of trees invisible from the 2 fields. One would never know it was there, but did have a small parking lot next to it accessible only by a rarely used, poorly maintained back lane. Most people would park in the school lot and walk the 2 minutes along the path through the trees. The 2 fields next to the school were typical school fields, not particularly well maintained, uneven, and definitely not regulation-sized, typical school fields. The third field was regulation-sized, perfectly maintained, had new bleachers, and was maintained like a professional field with regular waterings, cutting, and seeding. It was the groundskeeper's pride and joy. It was the first day of a new season, and my team of 10-year-olds, the Brown Pandas, showed up for our first practice. Except there was another team on our assigned field, a team of talented players with matching socks and shorts. They were all wearing cleats and all in their late teens. I approached the coach and explained that he was on our field and that his field was a 2-minute walk away down the path. He politely told me to take a hike. He was there first, and that was that. So, not looking for a confrontation, I took my team to the really nice field. The parents had bleachers to sit in, and we had a great time on the big boy field. After the practice, the groundskeeper asked me why we were practicing on this field. I told her what happened with the other coach. She told me she asked the other coach to switch the field also. He told her to buzz off, and that was his field. 2 days later, at our second practice, his team was on our field again. The groundskeeper called me over to talk to her and the other coach. She stated, "Just to confirm, for the rest of the season, you're switching fields with the Brown Pandas on the far field and your team on this field here?" "Yeah, this is our field, and the little kids will be on the far field." He looked at us arrogantly. "Fine by me," I stated, grabbed my equipment, and trudged over to the professional field. 2 glorious weeks passed, when during practice, the other coach came over with his team and saw our field. He approached me and told me that we needed to switch fields. I laughed in his face. "Go get the groundskeeper over so we can discuss it." I turned my back on him and probably did something like tie a kid's shoes or dry some tears. Remember, they were 10-year-olds. His team started trying to use our field. One of the Brown Pandas was scared of the bigger kids and started crying. A couple of parents stepped in and started shooing them away before one of the 10-year-olds got hurt. He returned with his entire team and the groundskeeper. She was beaming. She asked him if he remembered our conversation 2 weeks ago. He started to argue. She told him that we were keeping with the terms of that agreement and to go back to his own field. "Go on, scoot," I remember her saying. We had our first game the next week. All the Brown Panda parents were in attendance watching their kids playing soccer on a beautiful field with semi-comfortable seating and a working scoreboard. As we left, we walked by the other team playing on a muddy, undersized field. They eventually changed their game dates and times so they could use the big field, but had to practice on the old field. The brown pandas never had to set foot on the older field all season. One of my employees had to take 2 days off of work because his father passed away. A week later, his dad walks right into the store. One of my employees is becoming a bit of a chronic liar. He's a bit of a performer, always doing impressions and generally being a pretty funny guy, but he's a bit of a slacker. I'll call him Scooby. One day, Scooby comes in, uncharacteristically quiet, just looking sad and depressed. He was working slower than usual and not really responding to anybody, in the middle of an otherwise busy kitchen. So he gets pulled aside and tells the owner of the store that his dad just passed away and he was reeling from it. He told him not to tell anybody because he's not the kind of person to spread his emotional baggage around. The owner and I gave him a hug, told him to go home and take as long as he needs. He comes back a few days later and everything seems all right. A few days later, a man walks into the store and asks to see Scooby. "I was wondering if I could see Scooby. That's my son." "You're his dad?" "Yeah, we look alike, don't we?" He did. They looked exactly alike. So now we're faced with the situation of this kid being a little liar. I pulled my boss, the owner, aside and asked him what to do. He told me that we're extremely short-handed right now and letting him go would be counterproductive because we're in the middle of training 3 people and letting him go would force the more capable people to do 50+ hours a week. There's basically 2 to 3 of us plus the owner. He told me not to say anything to Scooby and that he and his wife would take care of it. A few weeks have passed now, and I no longer believe a word out of this kid's mouth. Apparently, the owners talked to him about his lying, but since then it hasn't really stopped. He's taken off of work from throwing up all the time. At one point, he took 3 Fridays and 2 Saturdays off in a row because of his throwing up and various digestion issues. He said he went to the doctor, and his doctor told him he was allergic to eggs, so he stopped eating eggs and that he was okay. Meanwhile, I'll occasionally catch him eating a pre-packaged egg sandwich we bring for the employees for their lunch breaks. One time, he came in all sad and depressed again because his girlfriend broke up with him, and his productivity slowed down to a crawl. We told him to keep his personal drama at the door and sent him home. That night, I see he and his girlfriend publicly snuggling all over my Facebook feed. I don't know what to do. I can't look this kid in the eye anymore, and my boss won't fire him. Do I just deal with it and keep letting this little jerk look at me in my face and lie to me every time he wants to take off of work? Why not discuss this with the owners? OP, that's the thing. They already know about it all. It's impossible to lie to me, especially if I've already caught you in a lie. Then, when you talk to me, my default position is that you're lying, and I'll go back in and logically catch people in lies. The kid's a terrible liar already, and when he talks to me, he's talking to the gatekeeper of truth. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but the only way it's affecting my work is that I would occasionally have to cover for him. But I told them that if this continues, they would have to cover for him because I'm tired of working 6 days a week and having to come in at 3 a.m. on my day off to open the store because this dude's family are dropping like flies. Can he just be replaced? We're trying our best to train these new kids, but there's so little time. We've resorted to having people come in at 3 a.m. to dress donuts in a closed store for 3 hours until it opens, but it's really hard finding people with an availability of 3 a.m. to whenever the heck. Update. So it's been about 2 months since I last posted about this incident. A lot of really crazy things have happened, so I'll jump right in. After everything happened with the last post, everybody simply put the dead dad incident in the back of their minds. They were upset for a while, but they eventually let it go. I was the last one to let it go, but eventually I did. In retrospect, I shouldn't have, because he never once owned up to his lie. He just acted like none of it ever happened. He tried to come up with lies to get out of working holiday shifts he was scheduled for, Christmas and New Year's, but nobody believed him, and he was told that if he didn't show up to these shifts, that he'd be fired. He showed up to the Christmas shift, but he overslept through the New Year's shift. Nobody cared because we ended up not needing him for the shift anyway, and one of the new guys ended up covering for him on call. Everybody was upset with him again, and he's been on thin ice ever since. Then crap hit the fan in the past 2 days. A couple of days ago, his apparently psycho girlfriend caught him hanging out in a car with one of our mutual coworkers. She had an absolute breakdown and started pounding on her window. Scooby hops out of the car to calm her down, and the coworker, Sky, drives off. The psycho girlfriend gets in the car and keeps trying to cut Sky off in traffic. At least that's the story I heard from my boss. She eventually lets up, Sky manages to get home safe, and texted Scooby, basically going off on him. Later that night, I make a quick stop by the store owner's house to pick something up for the store, and they tell me that Scooby called them and told them that he wouldn't be able to work for the next few days because he got into a big fight with his girlfriend and she slashed his tires. The next morning, I show up for my shift and Scooby calls the store. His speech is all slow, mumbled, and he's slurring his words. I immediately think he's on something. He tells me this story about how the night before, after his girlfriend slashed his tires, she calmed down and they were walking around where they live, in some warehouse district somewhere apparently, looking for a store to grab money so they can call a tow truck to come get his car. While walking, they got mugged. He's fine, but she's not, and they took all of their money. Because of this, he wouldn't be able to work for the next few days, which is Valentine's Day, our busiest day of the year by far. Nobody even wanted to speak to him at that point, so it all came down to this morning. The owner comes in, and I asked her if anyone had spoken to Scooby. Basically, she pulled a string, and his entire wall of lies came crumbling down. I can't make this stuff up. So yesterday afternoon, Scooby calls the store with a disgusted voice and asks for one of our coworkers, Ashley. He asks for her and tells her to meet him out the back of the store with his paycheck that was left for him at the cash register. He did this so that he could avoid having to talk to the owner. Well, she caught wind of it and showed up out back of the store with his paycheck, but he noticed and literally ran away. He shows up about half an hour later and he had marks on his neck, because apparently when you get mugged by a group of guys, they scratch your neck. She confronted him about all of it, told him that she doesn't believe a word he ever says, and that she loves him and wishes he had stopped making terrible decisions. By the end of the conversation, he basically admitted to all of the lies, and he was finally fired. And thus is the tale of Scooby, the wandering liar. He's the kind of liar where he's so introspective that he thinks his outlandish lies are going to fool anybody. And it baffles me. I never knew how this dude was ever getting through his life, but I found out a few things over the course of him working there that proved that he was just a pillar of bad decisions. That was his trademark. He got arrested a month ago and was put in jail because he fessed up to some shoplifting that his girlfriend did. He was already on probation from some other crap, but he got off on a legal technicality and got off light. But being in jail for 2 days didn't do anything to help Scooby get his life together. His parents kicked him out of his house, and he'd been floating between his girlfriend's house and his ex-girlfriend's house when he and his current girlfriend are fighting. I know, it sounds like a bad soap opera, and none of us understand why he's letting himself be put into this situation. He needs his butt kicked by someone who cares about him because he's going down a really bad road. And why is our donut shop busy on Valentine's Day? Who knows? It just happened that way for the past 2 years that the shop has been opened. People like to be creative with their Valentine's Day gifts, so they get donuts instead of flowers and chocolates. My mother-in-law tried to stop my wife's life-saving treatments. Allow me to introduce you to my late mother-in-law. I'll call her Carol for the sake of variety. Though I've heard many stories about her, for the most part, I'll stick with things that I witnessed myself. There are enough of them. I don't think Carol ever met a New Age concept that she didn't like. Her expressed goal was to synthesize all religion, science, and mysticism into a unified whole, all of it. To this end, she amassed a large collection of books and stranger objects from her travels, with a special focus on healing. Her library had volumes about vibration manipulation, curative trampolining, homeopathic color therapy, and on and on. I'm not joking or exaggerating here. Her shelves had lots of, admittedly, pretty mineral crystals, along with bottles of magic goddess essence water, evaporated away, and bogus radon protectors, powered by diagrams of geometric figures. Her favorite book, based on the number of annotations and sticky notes, was hundreds of pages of word salad about spiritual beings from the star Arcturus. That's Arcturus spelled with an H because of H-bar, Planck's constant from physics. Her pentagonal home was custom built around an energy vortex that she discovered in the coastal peaks of British Columbia. My wife got the heck out at age 17 and moved across the country to go to university. For most of the time after that, she went relatively low contact. A decade ago, my wife suffered from a surgical error which resulted in abdominal sepsis and asked me to call her mother. That made me understand just how deathly serious the situation was. I was to call in the family for what might be the last time. I hadn't grasped that her life was truly at risk until that point. Nothing less would have induced her to try to get her mother to visit. To her credit, Carol did hurry out, for what was supposed to be a couple of weeks. It was expected that in that time, my wife would either pass on or be on the road to recovery. Carol stayed in our home, and at first, things didn't go too badly. For the most part, we just didn't talk about the treatments that my wife was undergoing. Carol did express concern about the antibiotics that were being given, since according to her own views, antibiotics did nothing but harm. But a couple of weeks stretched into a couple of months, and Carol became harder to live with. She was angry when I stroked my wife's hair with my hand because I was blocking the energy from her chakra. She started blaming me for having somehow caused the nausea that the botched surgery was supposed to cure. I drove her out to pick up a magical concoction of essential oils on the condition that she check with one of the doctors before applying them. I pointed out that if the mixture had the power to heal, then it also had the power to cause harm, which Carol denied. When we got back to the hospital, I nabbed one of the residents when we reached my wife's floor to ask about that. Carol became furious about that, and it was clear that she had no intention of talking with the doctors. At home, she got worse with me. She was claiming that I was mistreating my wife by not letting her have her things in the house. At that point, I lost my temper. The first time I'd yelled at a person in literally a couple of decades. I told her that almost everything in sight was actually her daughter's, displacing my stuff. The sofas, the piano, table and chairs, the bookshelves, and the electronics. The shelves for the CDs and DVDs were mine, but half the contents were hers. Carol wanted to know if I'd be continuing the herbal remedies after she left, and I told her that that was up to my wife. I'd continue them if she wanted. I'd stop them if she preferred. Carol screamed that I was mistreating my wife by following her own wishes rather than her mother's. On the night before Carol was finally supposed to be heading out, I was restless. That particular nightmare was about to end, but my wife was still quite ill. I got to thinking about that essential oil mixture, which included both oil of cloves and oil of cinnamon. Those are both strongly irritating if left on the skin, and Carol had been painting my wife's feet with the stuff. Her feet were, apparently, the correct energy points to draw out the infection. I went online and found the manufacturer's instructions, which specified that the oil needed to be significantly diluted with some neutral oil if it was going to be applied to the skin. Carol hadn't even been using the stuff properly. Well, that explained why the skin on my wife's feet was yellow and starting to peel. But Carol was furious when I calmly pointed out the problems that she was creating out of ignorance. A few days after Carol left, my wife took a turn for the worse and had to go back into the intensive care unit, and I dreaded the phone call that I had to make. Not because of the bad news, but because I anticipated how Carol would react, and she didn't disappoint. "If you really loved her, you'd put her back on the herbal oil and stop the antibiotics. You know perfectly well they won't do anything." At which point, I hung up. I had other things to worry about. My wife pulled through after months in the hospital and 3 stays in the ICU. She's still in poor health. I told her that I was putting my foot down. Under no circumstances was her mother welcome under my roof again. I didn't care about the family custom that family members were always welcome to stay as guests. I would not stay under the same roof as her mother. Having heard my stories and based on her own experiences, my wife agreed. A few years ago, Carol passed, much as she had lived. She was diagnosed with metastasized lung cancer. Although she did undergo some real medical therapies, she relied mostly on her quack remedies, pawpaw twig powder, whey protein immune boosters, and the like, the usual crap that ethics-free swindlers pawn off on desperate sufferers. She firmly believed that all the little white spots on her lung x-rays were a good sign and that her rapid weight loss indicated that her boosters were draining the cancer away. If there's some existence after death, I hope she came to appreciate all of the harm that she did in life. Except, a couple of nights after she passed, I was driving from the hospital back to the Energy Vortex house. The rental car's navigation device suggested a shorter route that I'd taken to get there. But that route turned into a back road, into a rough road in the hills, into a track through the forest, and, in pitch darkness apart from my headlights, over a rocky bump, and directly into a tree trunk. Luckily, I was traveling slowly and I stopped in time. As I paused, shaken, I got to wondering if there might be something to Carol's worldview after all, and if her vengeful spirit might have possessed the GPS device, making one last try at getting revenge on me. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.